All right, hey, welcome back to Spotlight, where we dive into deeper ideas and explore the science of it all. I am here with my co-host, Love. How are you, Love?
Sup? Doing fucking fantastic.
Let's go. This your man, Dan. We out here making shit happen. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, and give us a follow. And make sure you share this, because if you don't share it, well, we're gonna
Find
chop
you.
find you, chop your toes off, and then feed
No,
them to the chickens.
We're gonna find you and drag you through rigorous self-healing.
Yes. And we're going to put soft music on and leave it at that and leave you in a room for hours. Just kidding. We're not going to do any of that because you guys have already shared it and liked it and followed. So, anyways, let's jump right into it. Oh, by the way, so the last podcast we recorded, it was our fourth one we sat down and did. I think we finally figured out like a good structure. We found our own style of speaking, and we're comfortable around the mic. We're good at feeding each other's energy, feeding off each other's energy. So I'm very excited to get that out and so you guys can hear that. But what I did, and I didn't tell you, and I was hoping that to surprise you with it, I put a intro song and an outro song, and it sounds like it's pretty sweet. It's lit. I'm not gonna lie.
All right.
It's two samples I pulled off the internet. And it's just a drum loop and like a little like piano or guitar. I forget what instrument it was, but it's nice. It's nice and pleasant. So you guys just heard that, and so I hope you guys like it. Give us some feedback on it. Let us know if you like the intro. Oh yeah, she has it. I had trouble uploading it. I uploaded it to YouTube. It took me about 20 minutes. It got to like 10%, and then I moved the file, and then it canceled the download. So I had to re-upload it. Took 2 hours. And now it's not showing up on the YouTube. So I got to go back and figure that one out. Anyways, how you doing today?
Love? I'm doing good.
Doing
right now
right.
I'm trying to find my notes.
Yeah, so usually I'm recording with the rappers down the road here, and we didn't record today. Just communication's not good between all of us. So I came over early, and we just chatted for a bit, and I said I was hungry. And then you were kind enough to make some breakfast. Yep. You were kind enough to make some breakfast for us, and that was wonderful. But I think I had too much coffee, and now I'm just like tunnel vision, jittery, and I'm feeling great. Not really, but shit. She asked if we should do a grounding practice before we start. No. Because I think we have a lot to dive into. So we also did, as we were eating, is we sat down and wrote a bunch of ideas on what we can talk about. What I learned off of mixing this last podcast is we could, based off of what we heard, what we talked about, I was able to come up with the title. So the title you guys are going to be getting next, or the last thing you listened to, was how influence can change your life. And so, yeah, so I'm excited about that. But so we wrote a bunch of ideas down, a bunch of topics we can talk about. And, yeah, let's just jump right into it. I see you're in your other notebook. She has 3 notebooks here. Well, 2, and then she gave me 1. She has 3 notebooks here. And
I could grab like 3 more.
You want to grab 3 more? Why not? We could just all find one word.
There is one more.
No.
I'll be right back.
I'll keep them company. So, I hope you guys are having a good week. What did I do this past weekend? Oh, my girlfriend has been out of town. She's visiting a friend in Ohio. And I have the responsibility for 2 dogs. And unfortunately, because we live in a condo, I have to go walk them at least 3 times a day. Our one dog, Roxy, she's a complete maniac. And she has husky in her. If that helps with anything. She likes to run. She likes to hop around. She likes to play. So she has a lot of energy. And we have another dog named Doug, little Dougie boy. He's got about 9-inch legs. He looks like a cow, black and white. Or he's white with black spots. And he is very mean towards people, unfortunately. But he's a good little boy. And we're happy to have him. And them 2 together are great. So it's been good. I've had a decent week. it seems as if we were talking about before that I've been stuck in this loop of just going. I guess it's like every 2 weeks. It's like, all right, this week it's going to be a good week. I have a good week. And then the following week, it's like the problems from the last week popped up. And it's been driving me nuts. And the simple way of dealing with it is just, your coping mechanisms. How do you cope with it? Do you go do some yoga, go for an exercise, go for a run? So I've been managing that part of my life, and it's been quite extensive work, really. Now that I look back at it, when you start on this journey for working on yourself, it's very challenging to continue to do it. But if you continue to work and do the things that that work for you, like say yoga or breathing exercises or reading or anything positive that's going to move the needle forward, eventually you get to a point where you don't even think about doing it. So that's where I'm at. I'm at a point where, I know I'm feeling this way or that way, and I don't let it get to me that much because I go right into breathing exercises.
And then you hit a shit show day and it smacks you in the face and you go, okay, what worked last time? And you do it.
But then you literally forget about everything because you're so focused emotionally on that one little stupid thing that happened, and you can't get over it. Like you stubbed your toe, and it's just, you spiral down, boom, and you hit the bottom, and then you build yourself back up. So yeah, it's the ebb and flow of life is quite a rocket ship. So
like the Jeff Bezos ship.
Huh? The what?
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, what about him? Oh, this whole rocket war thing is so ridiculous. It's just like, I'm going to put people on Mars. Well, I'm going to bring civilians up. Oh, well, who cares, man? Just
me very unbalanced, masculine, very phallic, small phallic energy.
Well, that's why their wives left them, took their billions, gave it to good causes, and are probably doing humanitarian work because they're actually decent people. Women need to run this country. I don't care. Men are stupid.
Interesting theory about that. It is common for big company like owners and CEOs and shareholders to get divorced right before a predicted economic collapse, because with a divorce they're allowed to divvy things up and unload things that otherwise legally they wouldn't be able to within their corporations.
Which is such a problem with business, is that new rules get put into play, and then there's always a new loophole that's found, and then they fix that loophole, and then there's another loophole that comes by.
I wouldn't quote me on that though, because I saw that on the internet, and we know how that goes.
Well, like the whole thing with Bill Gates, like Melinda, they divorced. She was left with a lot of fucking money. And then now there's like a theory going around about him and his involvement with Jeff Epstein. And like how like it's just so, there's people on the internet have too much time to be on the internet. That's part of this whole struggle thing. We were just talking about before this how if you're going to build a business and have a business, how are you going to build a business but not have to rely on the internet, but use the internet as a driving force to make that business better? What's that product you can offer or whatever. So I don't know. Let's dive into the things that we want to talk about today.
All right, what are we starting with? The money mindset?
Yeah, we could start with it. Before, when we were sitting down at the table, we talked about how money, our generation, the millennial generation, majority of us come from blue-collared family, work, get up in the morning, go to work, feed your family, make sure the family's good, that's it. There's nothing else in between that we were trained on.
We were parented by boomer values.
Yeah. And I think, so my parents got divorced, my girlfriend's parents got divorced, a lot of parents were divorced, a lot of boomers got divorced, and maybe found new love, because that's, like my mother found new love, and I'm happy for her, and she's doing well. It's very I was saying before that money is just an illusion, and it's an actual material thing, but the value that we put on it is an illusion, which I think is what you said. I just interpreted it that way now.
Yeah, so I had the pleasure of getting to sit in a class with this woman named Jessica Seinstra. And she
Shout out
is
Jess.
a coach that specifically works on money mindset. And some of the things that like I learned with her, and the actual meaning of the word currency is to be in flow.
What?
Current.
Oh, right.
Currency.
Okay.
It's a flow of energy.
Flow of cash.
Mm-hmm. Or it's also known as the condition of flowing. And that, so when you think about money and you recognize that it is an energy,
Yeah.
are you in the flow?
Say that again. I processed it, but I'm probably say it again.
So recognizing that money is energy,
Yeah.
are you in the flow of energy? Are you in the flow of the energy of money?
I mean, I want to say yeah, but like I don't know how to break that down, to be
The
honest.
resistance you're feeling this week, I would argue to say that you probably haven't been feeling like you are.
I think the thing with me and money is like I think with most people is that we need more. We need more. We need to make ends meet this week, this month. You know, I need to be doing this. I need like that's always in the back of my mind. I think it's not until you get that cash. All right, so here's the problem I have with money is all right, I go get a job that to make ends meet, perfect. You know, I'm doing that. But in my spare time, I'm building a business, building an online business, building a music business, working with other people in the music industry. And then on the other hand is, okay, I can go get a job 40 hours a week, maybe get some overtime to not just make ends meet, but to also build up a savings, to build up something. But then again, the rest of that time I have is very little because I'm spending most of that time relaxing or you know whatever it may be to prepare to go make more money that week.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I know this is all part of growing up. I'm 28 years old, so it's a little bit different. I'm in a good position because I don't have much responsibility other than, you know, my dogs, my girlfriend, and the things at home that need to get done. So like that's kind of like that's scratching the surface of my value. There's a motorcycle or something going by. That's my value I have towards money, I guess.
So I recently came across this concept of like, if you're in the working class, you're trading your time for money.
Yeah.
In the traditional working system. And you are using the majority of your time to create, which is difficult and does not always cover the bills, which is super fucking fun.
And that's the joy of being creative is
Mhm.
distinguishing that, you know, I might not be making money, but this is so much more, this is so much better for a greater purpose.
But what that's setting you up to be able to do is to trade value for money rather than time.
Trade value for money rather than time. So you're saying by doing that, you're putting more value into the money making aspect rather than the time that you need. See, and I think that's the like I always knew that money is time is money, and if I can make enough money to buy me more time, I'm going to always do that.
You can't buy more time, can you?
No, you can't buy time.
You can
have
value your time.
Yeah, you have time.
You can take your time.
Right. You can value your time. I think that's key right there. That's a key statement.
So, one of the things that I've been really like contemplating recently is just like the parenting piece.
Okay.
What are some like time is money is one of the phrases that popped up. What are some other like things that you remember that taught you what your parents thought of money?
Well, the one thing that pops out is like how there was always an argument about money. About we don't have enough for this, we don't have enough for that. I think all right, so I lost my dad to suicide, and the biggest thing I learned from that is he literally sacrificed his life so that I can chase a dream. Just to find out that in hindsight, you go back, you look at like the whole scenario for what it was, and he owed a lot of money. He made a lot of money sacrifices to give me this new type of life. And ironically, to just kind of put me back into, let's say, the reality of life and not necessarily that dream state anymore. Meaning I don't have any more money, and I have to work for I have to go earn my money. So yeah, that's kind of what really came from that, is that we never had enough of it. And when you get enough of it, you still don't have enough of it. Like, I had people give me advice. I was left $200,000, just about. I was having people give me advice that you need to put this money away for an emergency use only, use it if you need to get out of it. And to be quite honest, I used most of that to get me out of the emergency. Like, to get me out of the stupid mistakes that I've made, the stupid investments. Not mistakes, they're investments. I made stupid investments, whether if it's buying freaking... I think I had 9 vehicles by the time I was 21. Something like that. But like, they weren't like big extravagant vehicles. Like, I had a few trucks, and half of them were shit, but they all worked great. They did their purpose. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this right now, but I'm kind of rambling. I have a lot of caffeine in me, and that's kind of is getting to me.
So what I'm kind of gleaming from what you're saying is, even though you got that good chunk of money,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't solve your problems, you did get to have a lot of experiences in which you were able to learn a lot of really important lessons that you may not have otherwise learned.
So it's funny. I think because we decided we want to talk about the money mindset, like, my head instantly goes to like, I need to protect. So I it's outside of this, like, I'll preach that. I'll preach like what that spending all that money and making the wrong investments, like, made me, I think, is making me a really smart businessman, and really dialing in exactly what business that I want to be, or how I want to make an impact using money. What business idea do I want to follow that's a passion of mine that will potentially change this world, change this. Like, when I think selfishly, I think it's smart selfishly to think about your goals and to think about how you can be the best person you can be. And when I think of like how I want to be the best, like, I want to have like a Nobel Prize. Like, I want to be recognized as like a Nobel Prize winner. Like, that's how far, and I don't know shit about science. I don't know nothing about nothing. I just know that I have a philosophy inside of me, and that if I wanted to potentially one day get a Nobel Prize, I think I can do that. But I just need to go out there and continue to work, and I need to continue to make mistakes, continue to make bad investments, because now I'm at a point where every month I have to make ends meet, but I'm able to take a breath, to step back and look at the situation for what it is, and figure out how I can navigate. So I made investments. I turned $200 into $2,000 in the stock market in this past year. I started, say, back in like I want to say like November, December of last year. I started investing money, and I essentially turned $200 into $2,000. And I have the statements to prove it. I mean, I've made a lot of just different things, but so because of those investments, I've been able to now live off those investments and buy myself more time. So, right, like this month it's going to probably be a little tight financially, so I have to go dip into some of the stock market money that I made. Which is, I'm allowing myself, like, I have to tell myself it's going to be okay. Like, that's why I made this decision for this moment now.
Yeah.
So,
do you feel like if you'd not had the experience you did when you were younger, that you would be willing to make these types of risks as an entrepreneur?
So wait, you're saying if I didn't have this opportunity?
Yeah. So, like, if you never had that taste of like having the money and not having your regular everyday needs were covered during that, yeah?
Yeah.
And you didn't have to worry about your basic needs.
No, because I had money there to get me out of trouble or whatever it may be.
And that created a space of safety for you.
Oh, yeah.
Which gives you the ability to take calculated risks.
Yeah.
Which many of them you ended up learning from.
All of them,
now,
because I have none of it now.
A lot of people have an entrepreneurial spirit and mind, but their ability to take risks is often where they never step into that.
And that's why people will just conform to, all right, gotta go get this, gotta go just do this now or do that or, yeah.
Yeah. I am one of those people. I spent my whole life doing what I was told, doing what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
To have the least amount of like trouble and risk and waves humanly possible in every aspect of my life, both financial and especially relational. And it has taken me, I mean, even just sitting here now having this conversation is a risk to my nervous system.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's becoming vulnerable.
It is.
It's, I was mixing this last episode. I'm listening to it. At first, like, before even listening to it, it was cringy. I felt like cringe. But then I started listening to it and I'm like, I brought myself back to that conversation as if we were standing on the other side of the room listening in and thinking, is this going to bring value to people? And it is, and it will. And that's what all of the mistakes I made have led me up to this point now, sitting down, recording this podcast of Spotlight, where we explore ideas.
I genuinely think that happiness and success comes from the willingness to be cringe.
Yeah. And just allow yourself to be vulnerable. So that's how a lot of people want to see vulnerability. And there's also the other bad side to it is when you are vulnerable, some people will take advantage of that. But this is a different type of vulnerability. We're putting ourselves out there and our stories out there to inspire people, because that's ultimately what we talked about in the last one, is that we're a bridge to love, to inspiration, to whatever. We have stuff to give, and we want to give it to the world regardless of who we are, what we are, how we are. We're putting the work in. We're building a foundation right now. And it's going to turn into something bigger, whether if it's this podcast becomes successful or whatever. It's just one of the big things I learned from having money was that it was like a different side to life. There was a different people with money who have an infinite supply of money. Say the one husband, he owned a truck business, and like he was thriving. He was probably pulling in $1 million a year, and like they're forever set. His family is forever set. Even if they were to stop doing the business, I think like they have it's the whole family is like a business family.
So I want to bring it back to the money mindset thing. Would it feel good if I were to say that having that chance to have that much money helped shifted your core money mindset?
Yeah, because now I'm at a point in my life where I want to create a good foundation like this podcast, like my music productions, that I know creating a business that can pull in a good amount of money so that I can employ others in my family and give my family, essentially give my family the life that they've never been able to experience. Like that's where my dreams and my goals are now.
Mm.
And that's because I was able to witness that and I was able to live that life for a short period of time. And like it's funny how our family's a very loving family, and like the way that people with money love people is that they're there to, like, you need this, you need that. All right, so like we're at a dirt bike race and like say I just ran out of gas and like, hey, you guys got any gas? Like they're more willing to just give you things like that if you're in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the tough thing, is that your environment, I think, plays a big role in the way that you value money. Now, if you're in a situation where it's hard to value money if you're living in poverty, but that's where the mind shift happens. That's where you need to find your true happiness, and you need to pursue that happiness, because that's what's going to find you these bigger opportunities.
Mm.
So I mean, I've just taken a different path than most people, and it's hard to, I can only give you my experiences, and hopefully you receive them and try to interpret that in your own way.
So my own journey with like money has been interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
So I had two separate, distinct like parenting styles of influence. On one hand, I had a very like neglected, very like just a mindset where it was always, there was never enough. Um, but at the same time, there was a lot of like frivolous spending happening, and spending that just didn't make sense, especially looking back at it. And I noticed that those patterns like persisted for me in my adulthood. Things where spending money on yourself was selfish, but spending money on others was acceptable. And a lot of people who have grown up in Christianity, I think, have this mindset.
That's where I was going to go with it. I was going to bring it to religion.
Yep. And it put me in this place of like, I would be so overly generous with other people that it was no longer like functionable. Like it would definitely get me into trouble.
Would you say it's almost like a form of being gullible?
No, because I would do it and I would be happy to do it. And I wouldn't even think twice about how much I was spending because it wasn't for me.
Right.
Um, and that was that very like self-sacrificing, like Christ complex. And but at the same time, everything else in my life was so like penny pinched. Like if it
Right.
was for myself, I wouldn't spend money.
You wouldn't treat yourself because
Mhm.
you know that you've placed a value on that.
But it
dollar.
led to me not nourishing myself and not looking into my health and not going and getting therapy and just the things that I really needed to do to take care of myself and to love myself so that I could fully love everyone else in my life. I wasn't doing those things because those things cost money,
Yeah.
and spending money on myself wasn't okay.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I had another like influence where everything I needed, I always had. I didn't have to work hard to have the things that I needed. And I'm very, very, very grateful for those people in my life. Um, and I can honestly say that ultimately, the things that I really need, so your basic housing, food,
Yeah.
your basic needs. I have always had those things, and I am very, very lucky and very grateful to have had those things and to not have ever been in a place where I could say that I wasn't sure that I would have those things. I've never known that.
You know, it's funny because it's not funny. I'm thinking, like, I mean, I'm in that same boat where all the basic needs, I think because we've come from the families we've come from, they were able to give us that. And I just think we'll always be okay in that aspect. But there's people who are less fortunate. Now, those people who are less fortunate, I can't sit in your shoes. But what I can do is say, there's something that you're grateful for. And I think that's all that mind shift is. That money mind shift is shifting what the problems are into what you're grateful for, because then you recognize you're able to look out from the outside and see what the situation really is.
I would
It-
even
it-
argue
it-
everyone
it's-
that I've ever met who has been in a place where they're not sure if they're going to have a home and they're not sure if they're going to have a meal, they actually have more gratitude than anyone that I have ever met.
Right, and that's a catch-22 there. It's a very interesting thing. Like, I remember I always I come across these like there's these people who go do like missions over in like African countries, and like they'll go to tribes, and like one thing that the kids are never got to experience, and they're always like they love, is like experiencing candy for the first time. Like, that is the joy that they get from that is like, that's what I strive for. I want to strive for that happiness. I want to strive for being that bridge to that person for that, get that same reaction. And so it's just, it's tough being, whether if we're successful or not, it's just like, I think trying to figure out what money is and creating a money mindset is just always going to be a revolving door. It's always going to be a difficult thing to understand and figure out, because this country is run by money, and it's, I don't know, money's just a tough thing for me because I'm not successful. And even if I was successful, I'd 100% be preaching the same shit. And that's when people will finally listen to you. That's how it usually seems to happen.
I guess that really comes from how you define success.
Yeah.
Because I look at you and I do see success.
Okay. See, and that's the thing, is when I think of success, I think of having a thriving business, pulling in a lot of money, or bringing in enough money to where it goes back to what we said before, where I'm not trading my time for money. I'm trading my money for time. Does that make sense? Oh my God. That just went right over. It sounds like it makes sense. I just don't know if it makes sense.
I think you're good. You're good.
I mean, I think you get the concept. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know where this conversation's going right now. I feel like we're kind of going
let's
off
redirect
rails.
a little.
Yeah.
So we talked about money mindset. What was the other thing we wanted to talk about?
Wait. I think ultimately earning money is like obviously the way in this country, but changing your mindset to allow money to just be in your life and not let money run your life, I think is the mind shift that needs to happen. And depending on your current situation, you have to figure that out. And I can figure it out by sharing my experience, and this is what I learned. So everybody has their own experience, and I strive for those people to figure out what drives them and pursue that.
All right. That gives me a good segue. So mind shift. Changing.
Mind shifting.
What are you doing to shift those mindsets?
Well, one thing, letting time pass by. That's for damn sure. But I think another way that I've shifted, it all goes back to my mental practices, my yoga, my working out, my exercising, eating the right food in the morning or whenever, like not eating pizza like I did last night, then just go completely off the rails and then make pancakes. I didn't tell you that. I didn't tell Kaylee that I had pizza and then pancakes. I had pizza and then pancakes, and I am so goddamn guilty of it.
Don't feel
But-
guilty.
But you know what?
you swan dove.
But I did good.
Scientifically,
throughout-
the best way to do it.
Well, that's like The Rock. He like eats really clean and then just has like a whole cake to himself on a Sunday. You know, like I did fairly good this past week eating. So yeah, I did overindulge with treating myself. But that's like that's it, I guess. It's just like it's snapping back into it and like getting up this morning and doing a little bit of stretching, just kind of scrolling through some media stuff and just kind of seeing the current state of, say, the stock market, because I've invested financially into the stock market. So, you know, I'm going to always invest my time into learning more and more and more. And then just getting my priorities straight for the morning and then figuring out what I'm doing this morning. So I told myself, so Monday, at this point, it's not a day for me to go make money. Yeah, we're at 37 minutes. We got time. Well, we'll push it towards an hour. I think it's fine. There's really nothing in here that I'm like, we need to cut out. So a lot of it's just going back and mixing it. And we're back.
We're back.
We're back. I don't even know what we're back from or where we're going with this. What was I saying?
So we're kind of talking about the work, the self-work.
Yeah.
All of the practices that you put in place so that you can move your life forward in the direction that you want to move with purpose. And we were talking earlier about how doing this work and sort of being on this path, there's an extra like element when you're in a relationship.
Oh yeah. All right, so we're going there. So what did I write down? Let me see. I think I wrote money right. Oh, easy. It's easy being single. You're a better influence on yourself. You're only responsible for yourself. So that's huge because when you're saying, I mean, you see so many stories. People, they get into a love relationship or any relationship and you start investing your time into that. And then you start neglecting your own self, and then it just turns into issues. And this person's not happy with this person, and it can get bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking of just like, I say my past relationships, I guess. It's easy to just kind of conform to that other person, and then so like me and my girlfriend now, we've been going almost 5 years, and it's a good relationship. It's a great relationship. We have our ups and downs. I make her laugh, she makes me laugh. We have the 2 dogs, and like it's a good time. But I noticed that I have to invest all this time into her, into the dogs, into cleaning our place. Like there's just so much extra responsibility that I committed to, and that I'm in. I told her since the beginning, I'm in for the long run. We just can't, if there's bullshit from her end, or I'm like, I'm not gonna take it. I don't know why I just assumed right away she was just gonna like cheat on me or go see other guy. Like that's whatever. It's a different subject.
I think that's a fear that's really common for pretty much anyone getting into a relationship. I don't know a single person who enters a relationship without that fear.
Yeah, it's you don't, because when you get hurt once, you feel unprotected, and then you're there protecting yourself. So anyways, so like there's so many stories of people who break up with their boyfriend or girlfriend and then become like, they become this huge fitness fanatic, or they start working on themselves more, and they start, and so that's the I don't want to say I'm in that struggle, but I'm just in that boat of
trying to find the balance.
Yeah, trying to find that balance. And I think I've been balanced pretty well. I just think I have a lot of personal issues I have to work out, whether if it's go to therapy or maybe I need to start working out more again. I don't know. I'm just at a very weird point in my life where I've gotten rid of a lot of people in my life who necessarily weren't helping me out. I mean, they were there to like kind of mask pain, I would say.
Mm.
But yeah, I feel like I'm back at a place as if I'm single and I'm on the drawing board and it's like, all right, what next? But I'm not. I have my girlfriend, and so I feel like I'm living that right now.
Mm.
And I don't think I'm lost. I think I'm just
You're focused.
yeah, I'm still just on the path, and like it's hard to not have the answers when the answers haven't shown up in like months,
Mm.
and you're just still searching and you're still working for it or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean like okay, so I got a little bit of success with my music where I started showing up on the recommended page on YouTube. And I've accumulated over 500 views now and on one beat, on one song. And like that brought my analytics up on my YouTube page up. And like that's I believe that's a really big step.
Mm.
It didn't get me anything. It maybe built a little bit more confidence and put inside of me like, all right, just keep doing what I'm doing because this is working.
Mm-hmm.
This is fucking working and I need to keep going and I need to not give up.
Mm.
And so like that's my motivation. Yeah, so I guess I don't know, to sum up the whole being just responsible for yourself is don't blame others for your responsibilities, really. That's what I think it comes down to.
So I am coming out of a 12-year marriage.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah. And
there's always a dun 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 moment at some point in this podcast. I think I did it the last one. That's funny.
And I, based on like just relationships that I had with parental units,
units. Fucking units.
I very much learned to lose myself in a relationship and to completely like just recharacterize myself based on the other person's needs. And a lot of that stems back to that like that concept of like selflessness. Selflessness is love, which is just not true. You can be giving, you can be caring. You don't need to be selfless.
Yeah.
You can still be an amazing person and not completely die to yourself in the process. Self-sacrifice is not necessary. And I think that that concept is very drilled into me because of Christianity. And I don't think that it was necessarily done on purpose, but ultimately it is the message that got through the strongest.
Yeah.
And I think that can be that I think that's very relatable for pretty much anyone that grew up in Christianity. And through like the end of my marriage, I really started stepping away from this self-sacrificing like behavior and mentality. And I still made a really strong point to conduct myself with love and understanding and caring and forgiveness as humanly possible. And it can be done without self-sacrifice. And I think what I found the most struggle with is moving away from the self-sacrifice really opened up a lot of the wounding and a lot of the like the feelings of betrayal and the feelings of unworthiness and the feelings that just honestly felt like complete shit and made me want to be in a place of like retaliation.
Yeah.
Because it brings up rage and it brings up this feeling of like injustice.
Protecting, you got to protect.
Yes.
Protect
and so
yourself.
There was a lot of work to be done to move through those feelings and allow myself to feel that way without throwing it out at everyone around me. you're in that place, you're very much like a wounded animal. And
There's a lot
of
of
us,
layers.
most of our
to it.
generation witnessed this in our parents when they went through their divorces and separations, and the resentment that was built up, and this need to protect oneself, and creating, an enemy out of the other person. And you forget that that's a person that you loved.
Creating an enemy. That's the thing
Mm-hmm.
about relationships, is that you've put a story behind that person and turned it into an enemy.
Yep.
Which I think is a brilliant way to sum that up there.
Yeah. And we all want to be the hero in our own story, and none of us want to accept being the villain in someone else's. And ultimately, we're both, because we're dualistic creatures. We have the capacity for both. And once you can really accept that about yourself, at least for me, accepting those parts of myself was what made it easier to take the space and time to make the choices to be the person I want to be, not act like the person I felt like.
And I think with that, like, summed up, it's like, nah, never mind. I lost the thought. God, it was such a good thought. It was such a perfect way to sum that up, and I lost it.
It'll come back.
Yeah, it will. It's just, I'm so. Oh, I remember. Um. So every time that, like, I think a lot of what this podcast represents is the things that we've said and that we've experienced that we're talking about, and like it might be common knowledge to some people, but like I think it's important because it's not going to fix it. Like, you hear it and all of a sudden they're like, well, that's easy. It's easy for you to say, but like you still have to do this. It's like, just becoming aware and recognizing it is one step, but allowing yourself to allow time to pass, to know that it's going to get better, or you're going to learn whatever this is I think is where success lies. Because when people talk about success and you hear successful stories, they all talk about how you have to enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey, and how you got there.
Yes.
It's like walking up a fucking mountain, walking up the hill down the road. You have to enjoy every little step and live in that moment. Live in the moment of going through it, and it's you won't have fucking issues. You'll be able to just get rid of your issues by thinking, by allowing yourself to be angry, by allowing yourself to be emotional, and then letting go of it all.
I disagree, but I understand where you're coming from. I don't think that you can get rid of the issues. I don't think that.
Well, they're always going to be there. Yeah.
I think what happens is, and it's funny because I have been going on dates, and it is a very new process for me. And what's really
a totally new area too.
Oh yeah. And it's really, honestly, it's been so much fun, and I have actually had more fun on the dates that like don't go well.
That sounds like demonic. Demon, dude. That's evil as shit.
Like,
that's fun. That's good. You're having fun.
And it's not because, the process of it not going well is not fun, but sitting there and watching what's happening and watching how things are not going well, or like that things are just weird and just don't fit, and learning about myself through those experiences. I'm really enjoying the process of like watching how I handle things. And like this past week, somebody who
put me there. Put me in the bubble. I want to know.
Like, I was talking to this guy, and he was really nice and very like in tune with himself, or so it seemed. And like we could have intellectual conversations. Like, he was cute and he was respectful and like honored consent, and like he's a good guy. And I was really enjoying the interactions. And then out of nowhere, he just stopped communicating. And
Wait, is this in person?
we've hung out, yes, but we were also talking,
Okay. Okay.
on
Okay.
Snapchat and stuff.
Good.
And
And that's where the communication stopped, was through Snapchat.
yeah,
Okay.
and I was like, okay, like
You
what-
noticed it right away?
I was like, what the fuck? Like, what gives?
Yeah.
And I let it go for like about a week. And I would just, say hello once a day because that's what I do.
And that's what it was at one point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right.
And then at some point I was just like, okay, this is limbo. I don't like the feeling of this. Like, it doesn't feel good to me.
Right.
And I've heard about this because I've watched my friends date for years now. And like the whole ghosting thing is so fucking just ridiculous. And how like
It doesn't make sense to me when people stop communicating. None of it makes sense.
it doesn't. And I get it, like,
And I want to figure it out. I want to figure out why.
but at the same time,
Tell me, bitch. It's like, give me the real
literally-
reason.
I've been having experiences where like it's tempting.
Yeah.
It is tempting to just
To
go somewhere.
feed. Oh, right. I was going to say feed into that energy of,
Like,
yeah.
it is hard to just straight up confront someone and be like, I'm not interested. Like, facing that confrontation is really hard for a lot of people. And I think that's ultimately why ghosting even exists. And so I decided to assert myself.
Oh, no.
And I asked him, I was like, hey, like, are you okay? Are you dealing with like executive dysfunction and you just don't have the energy to communicate? And like,
Or
that's
are you
fine.
fucking ghosting me, fool?
I was like, or are you just no longer interested in connecting with me? I just would like clarity on that. Because if you're going through executive dysfunction, I understand that very well. And if you would like to attempt to connect again down the road when you're ready,
Yeah.
like, I'm open to that. And you should know that. Like, I'm not going to judge you for going through that period in your life.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I've just, been dealing with a lot.
Oh, so he
and-
decided to answer now.
Yeah.
Once he gets to ask a serious question.
Well, and that's the thing, being willing to step up and actually ask for clarity and be vulnerable enough to accept potential rejection, which is why most people ghost in the first place, is because they're avoiding rejection.
I heard the first word you just said and the last word you said. And then I'm trying to piece it together. I'm like, what did she just say? Because I was kind of brilliant, but it was just
You listen back.
the big words, man. It gets to me sometimes. It throws me for a loop. But you're right. Listening back, it's gonna help me. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And, he explained that he had some stuff going on, and he goes, and I am also talking to other people. And I thought that was really funny that he felt like he had to clarify that. I was like, I would be surprised if you weren't talking to multiple people. Like, so we haven't known each other that long.
How many people you got going on, pimp? How many people you got, pimp?
But it dawned on me, like, from his tone, that he was genuinely like afraid of how I would react.
Probably because he's probably had crazy bitches in his life and he didn't want to deal with that.
Yeah, and like, he thanked me so many times for being understanding.
Oh wow.
That it was almost to a point where I was just like stop thanking me.
Yeah, you're like, wait, now I gotta ghost him. What did I do? Oh no! That's exactly what happened.
Nah.
Oh, that's funny. So wait, are you guys still talking?
Like, casually.
So it just, that's kind of what it's turned into at this point. Is
And
just
honestly, he's one of those people where like I would welcome just a friendship, honestly.
right. You're like, oh wow, this is actually I think we're better off just really being friends and
Yeah.
like not just like, oh hey, how you doing? It just like actual friends. Like, you want to go grab a coffee or something? Like, I got to talk about some stuff and I want to know like that's what you're saying.
Yeah. And
Is he from here? This town? Okay.
he's from like North Jersey.
Oh.
Um
There you go. Find yourself like a good sugar daddy from up north who works in like finance or something. Hey, I need a
Oh my god.
new
Okay.
pair of shoes.
We're going to talk about sugaring in another episode.
Oh no. Oh no.
You just opened a can of worms.
Yeah. This has started getting good now. We're almost an hour in. We were kind of slow in the beginning.
So yeah, and I, like honestly, just sitting there and recognizing that I was able to do that for myself and gain the clarity and like create vulnerability and a space for safe vulnerability for both parties. I was very proud of myself for doing that, and honest, like that carried me.
And it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be,
No,
right?
not at all.
It literally, it was just like a little moment in time and you're already moved on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And how much fucking anxiety did you build off of before opening that can of worms, you know?
You know, it was one of those things where like I wasn't super attached, but it was enough where
Yeah.
underlyingly I was just there was an awareness of like the like just the discomfort.
You caught yourself being aware and you're like, oh, here we
Mhm.
are.
Yeah.
And that right there is all of the little steps that you've put in over time to work on yourself to lead up to this moment right now talking about it and
Mhm.
how you were able to recognize it in that moment. And that's truth. That's there's truth and conviction there to show that doing something repetitive actually does work and continuing to want to be better will eventually work.
Yeah.
If you continue to just hold that, even ask yourself that oh man, I do want to be better. I want to be better. I want to be better. One day it's going to work and then you're going to notice it just like you did. And that's so cool.
I think the want to is definitely there, but the thing is I genuinely I really reached this place in the last week where for so long, like we all know that we're supposed to love ourselves.
Yeah.
We know that that's what's going to work. And everyone's like, "Oh, you got to love yourself, love yourself." And nobody knows how to fucking love yourself. And they never tell you how to fucking do it. And the people that do it, like,
Are making money off it.
well, I think they don't even realize, they don't even necessarily recognize the steps that they take to make it happen because they were taught naturally.
Right.
And
That's like somebody being born into like a family with money where they don't have to necessarily go out and earn their money. They just get to go run a fucking company that they learned off of from 4 generations ago.
mhm.
For some reason I'm thinking of the Roth, what are they called? The people who pretty much run this country, the Rothlers or something. I don't know.
Rockefellers.
Rockefellers. There that is.
Mm,
That's who I'm thinking of. Like, you know, if you're born into a family like that, it's like what you're saying.
yeah.
It's kind of, but
But it took that experience for me to sit with myself and recognize, hey, I'm loving myself right now. I asserted myself and said, I don't like this lack of clarity, and I'm going to ask for what I deserve. I deserve clarity. I deserve communication. And whether the other person's willing to participate is null and void. But I made sure that I had every opportunity to have my needs met by me.
you're allowing yourself to communicate. That
And
was the
that
key word.
act was me loving myself. And so, where I used to be really stuck on this idea of like being able to say, I love myself as a very like definitive statement has always felt like a lie. Because I look in the mirror and I'm like, yeah, I can say that, but I don't actually believe it.
Yeah.
But what I can believe is that I am loving myself. It doesn't mean that it's perfect in every moment, but moments like that, I can go, oh, yeah, I loved myself right there. Like, I took care of me right there. And it's making it so much easier to recognize opportunities to continue loving myself.
So to kind of wrap this up, because we're coming up to an hour, literally 15 seconds, 10 seconds, and 9, 8, doesn't matter. What do you remember the moment where you made the decision to turn your life around and get yourself out of that hole that you were in, or now that you look back on and you're like, wow, I was in this person, or I was this way, I was in this state of mind? Do you remember that moment specifically when you were like, I'm done?
It was a series of moments, honestly. And there was
Me too. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, well, what's my answer? But I'm thinking, I'm like, well, there's this and then this, and I'm thinking of all these examples. Yeah.
I do have a definitive moment in my life. And part of it is because of the nature of my childhood made it very black and white for me. There was a very definitive moment where I no longer chose my abuser.
Okay.
It wasn't a moment where I was ready to step into choosing myself,
Okay.
but that was the start. Was me looking at my abuser and saying, "No, I don't choose you anymore."
So do you remember, like, were you standing in a kitchen? Were you standing outside? Like, do you remember, like, where were you? You don't get it. I just want to know where you were. Were you in front of a freaking
I was
priest?
standing in the hallway of my home.
That's it. That's it. I
Yeah.
don't need no more. See, and that's it. And so, like, see, I asked you that question. I don't even think I got an answer for the question. But I agree with that. There's very little moments. There's little moments that I remember. Like when I was taking this leadership program, I remember this moment of there's this exercise where you had to get up in front of people. So there was, say, 50 people in the room, 25 people looking out towards the audience, and then the other 25 people come walk up to those people and they stand 5 inches away from each other, like right here. Hello, we're here. And we're looking at each other in your eyes. We're looking at each other's eyes. A lot of people can do it, but there were some people, and I had one of it was a lady, it was a Spanish lady. And it wasn't me specifically that triggered this like overwhelming sadness and anger. And she got really upset and couldn't stare at me in my eyes and started bawling her eyes out. She couldn't do it. And it wasn't me. I think it was me being a white man, because I think she was like a Spanish lady, a Latina lady.
Mm-hmm.
It was me being a white man. This is my speculation, my guess. Me being a white man and her having to look at me and maybe look at me as an authoritarian and not as like a human being. And that's what this practice did for people.
I would like to offer you an alternative perspective because I've done quite a bit of like eye contact work.
Sure.
And looking into the eyes of another human, there's a reason that we call it the windows to the soul. You see reflected in other people the parts of yourself that you love and you hate. And more often than not, because our brains are wired to look for the things that we want to avoid in order to avoid danger, we look for the things that we don't like. We
Right.
recognize them so much quicker. And when someone is looking at you and they are very open and very present and you are not, it is very jarring. It doesn't really matter who they are.
Right. Well, I remember
These
a situation
same
now.
people, because I was in this place.
Yeah.
I'm a hairstylist. I work in front of a mirror all the time. For years, I never ever looked at myself. And I remember being a child and walking past a mirror and like being shocked by my appearance because I would forget what I looked like because I wouldn't look at myself.
Yeah.
And part of my journey was a time where I literally had to sit in front of a mirror and make eye contact with myself and really, really see myself. And it really had nothing to do with like my physical appearance so much as really looking into my own eyes
Yeah.
and seeing what I actually see and feel about myself, which is what happens when we're making eye contact with other people.
Well, I do remember her situation. It was her ex-husband or ex-boyfriend was like an abusive person towards her. So she always got abused by him physically and I think mentally. So that was her situation. But yeah, it's just like, so again, that's one of those little powerful tools that really can help somebody. I mean, granted, you're in a room with a bunch of strangers and like, this is the exercise they do. So it's hard to just do that with somebody unless you go into like on a fucking bus and say, hey, can you stare at me we're going to do an extra, it's just, so whatever. I'm just rambling.
You could, but if you're going to do something like this, it is best to work with someone who really holds space for you
and
helps you feel safe.
Well, that's the thing with this exercise was that we knew nobody and you had no choice but to be vulnerable and do this exercise.
And admittedly, sometimes it is actually be easier to be vulnerable with strangers
Yeah.
because you're not worried about the potential judgment following you into the rest of your life.
There was even like a moment where it wasn't bad, but like if you're staring at somebody and like there was laughter that came up
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, like that's what this exercise did. We stood there and like stood at each other's eyes for fucking 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes.
It's incredibly intimate.
Yeah, and it's a very moving exercise because like
It's actually part of a tantric.
who's a tantric? What's a tantric?
Oh, okay. We'll bring that up another time.
Well, let's write it down. So, anyways, all right, let's close it up. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to add here?
Final thoughts. What are you doing today to take care of you?
And who do you have to reach out to? Because I think that's important to have somebody to talk to. But
Connection.
then again, I think it's more important to be able to talk to yourself and be happy with yourself.
I think it's a healthy balance of both.
Yeah.
Because and one of the other things that popped up for me with this is I have been through an extreme hermit phase
Mhm.
with a lot of my self-work. And it wasn't until I started going on a few dates that I started to see new things pop up
What are you on, Tinder?
to learn.
Bumble?
Nope, not sharing that. But we learn relationally. You can't learn about your patterns in a relationship if you're not in a relationship.
Yeah.
If you're not
you're not putting yourself in that position, or
if you're not interacting with the stimulus,
interact. There it is.
You're not going to have it pop up for you or bubble up for you. That's why a lot of people who are by themselves for a really long time and do a lot of self-work, and suddenly they go into like dating and they are thrown off entirely. It's all a balance.
And I think that's the main point we try to get across on this on these podcasts is it's balanced. Got to find your balance, and we're here to give you that balance every day, every episode. So all right,
We're fumbling through it, so
fumbling and rumbling.
we're hoping we can all, link arms and red rover this bitch.
Yeehaw! Anyways, love you, love.
Love you.
Good talking to you again. Thank you guys for stopping by. Ciao.
Deuces.